We're going to be looking at the relationship between the three principles understanding and the nervous system. My perspective, and it's only my perspective, is that there's a little bit of a missing link between the understanding of the three principles and the nervous system and the body. So this webinar is really going to try and unite them a little bit more as best as we can. Well, I used to teach the three principles, trained with Sydney Banks and Dr. Roger Mills 20 years ago, blah, blah, blah. And although I don't specifically teach that understanding, we do get a lot of three principles people coming to us with various things. As you guys already know, when I talk about the three principles, my version, because everyone's got a different version of it, but my version is that there are these three principles: mind, thought, and consciousness. Thought being the power of thought and that we think, the power of consciousness or awareness, and that there is an awareness behind life itself. And the power of mind, which is the intelligence of everything, whether form and formless. So principle means something foundationary. And so the wisest thing I heard Sid Banks say when I trained with him years ago, he said, there aren't three principles, there's one power in three different states. That's my terrible attempt at doing a Scottish accent. And I thought that was beautiful because when you fragment and split things, sometimes the essence of it can get a bit lost because you start thinking about this and that in relation to that. And so how I used to teach it is really one power in three states. Like water is still water, but it can be frozen, it could be fluid, it could be steam. All water, three states. Having said all that, there is this tremendous movement recently towards the nervous system and the body and the intelligence of the body and these ingrained physiological states we can have. Now, where the three principles as an understanding, again, this is only my opinion, and it's okay for you to disagree with me, where the three principles misses a little bit is it's top down rather than bottom up. Now, let me explain this quickly, because you have to get your head around this or your body around this before we can move on to specifically talking about trauma in the body and shutdown and anxiety and all that kind of stuff. So top down, here's one I prepared earlier. Look at that. Isn't that just the most amazing drawing you've ever seen? That's not a cloud, that's meant to be a brain. So top down means that the head influences the body. So we have like an anxious thought and we feel anxious, or we're watching the TV and then an axe murderer appears, and so we see it and then it influences the body, we feel anxious, okay? Now that didn't used to be, but it's been the mainstream paradigm of psychology, so many approaches that thinking or perception creates your feeling, thinking and perception creates your experience. You think it, then you feel it in your body. That is what I was taught well before coming across the three principles, and that's what I used to teach for 20 years. However, what I've come to see through arguments, through difference of opinion with Jules, and from my own experience and look at all the research, is this. And I don't want you to run screaming when I show you this, but just bear with me because I'm going to explain this. What research has found, which is completely crazy, I don't expect you to just believe this, and it took me years, is this. 2 years to get behind this. Bottom up means the body influences the mind. It's the complete opposite. Let me explain this. So a lot of this research wasn't around in Sydney Banks's time, okay?
It was poo-pooed. It started in 1890 with the discovery of anatomy, and it was actually William James, the grandfather of psychology,
American psychology,
that brought this to Harvard, and he did something called the James Lange theory. And it was poo-pooed by other Harvard elites because they believed that the body was too animalistic, that they're above the body. They don't need to be, they have this analytical, cognitive, executive functions, and that's all they need to worry about. So that's when the body kind of got left behind. And then there was a couple of other, Sir James Sherrington won a Nobel Prize for his work on how much information the body sends to the brain, which is 90%. And then it's coming back now with all of our science research. Yeah.
And so some of those, so what I don't want you to do is just believe what I say. I want you to just, a good definition of being open-minded. Being open-minded isn't having open-minded beliefs, okay? Being open-minded is being able to change your beliefs. So, HeartMath Institute, which we've interviewed Dr. Rollin McCraty from, that I can put a link in the chat.
And what I'm about to say may sound like a new discovery, okay? But it's not. And that is that the heart sends far more neural information through the nervous system to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. Okay? That's been known since the 1800s. In fact, psychology was based on this knowledge from the 1880s or so up until about 1930s or so.
So interesting.
And then it all became about the brain.
Yeah.
And so a lot of rediscoveries had to go on.
They did some research where people were sitting looking at a completely blank screen, and then either a difficult, gritty, horrible image came up or a really beautiful image. People didn't consciously know what image was going to appear, but the body knew 1.5 seconds before the image appeared. The body started preparing itself if it was a distressing image, and it started relaxing if it was a beautiful image. The body knew 1.5 seconds before the image appeared, showing that the heart and the body knows before any conscious awareness as far as analysis. Another one, people sat in a room and there's a video camera pointed at them, and they had to guess, were they being observed through people in the video camera or were they not? At the end of the study, there was a 50-50, nobody could predict if they were being viewed or not. However, every single person that were being observed, the body knew, it was giving signals they were being observed, but it didn't get to the conscious mind. Another one, if you're a card player, this is really interesting. There's this, it's called the Iowa Gambling Study, where they gave people 2 packs of cards in a real game, and they had to choose which was the good pack with good cards or a bad draw. Again, they couldn't consciously tell, but with a skin conductive test, when they picked the bad card, the body was warning them, this is a bad card. It was measurable. Now, I could go on and on and on. There is dozens and dozens, probably hundreds of studies showing that the body knows before our conscious awareness. To me, is the intelligence of the whole system, and it works where the body gets this information and it sends it up to the brain. Research has shown that top down, brain sending information to the body is only about 10% of experience. The bottom up, body sending information to the brain is 90% of experience.
Our physiological state sits in between the external part of our life and our reactions to that. So again, if we live in a behavioral world, we think that stimulus produces response. In part, that's correct, but there's something in between that that's a modifier of how that stimulus disrupts us or doesn't. And we would call that, oh, you're a flexible person, or you are just, any change and you just lose it. The point is that the physiological state is literally a transformer, transducer of whether we take things with flexibility or we are highly reactive to it. So that's the first point.
And on the last webinar, you explained,
Yeah.
could you explain that just very briefly?
So we have 500,000 motor neurons in our brain. They're not sensory, they're motor neurons. However, from our neck, our ears, everything apart from the brain, outside of the brain, all over our body, we have 10 million sensory neurons. 10 million. All over our digestive system, our heart, our toes. So that collects information via these little electrical impulses and collects it and sends it up to the brain for processing.
Mhm.
Is that enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also someone's just mentioned about the heart and the gut. Yeah, that's interesting. The heart, right, which is completely crazy, has its own intelligence and it can operate outside of any information coming from the brain. Same with the gut. We call it the three brains. We did a short on that.
Yeah, I love that. She said it got me excited when I saw that. We have our gut as our second brain.
Yeah. Also on the same topic, there's many creatures like trees. Okay, this is crazy again. Trees, right? It protects its young. It knows if there's predators because it sends off tannins, I think, and to warn the other trees. It knows your intention towards it. It can send nutrients to other trees. It nurtures its young. There's so much a tree does. It has no brain. It has no higher cortical functioning, an intelligence beyond the brain that can work through the brain. So when we look at thought, okay, many people, including us over the years, struggle with, well, I know it's my thinking, but I'm still taking life seriously. I know it's my thinking, but I'm still anxious. I know it's my thinking, but I can't sleep at night. I know it's my thinking, so why am I reacting like this? Hands up, if that is relevant to your life. Have you experienced that before yourself? Yeah, beautiful. And so we're all human. We're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
And sometimes we can, and I still do sometimes, terrorize ourselves with our own thinking. Okay. This is very human.
I was
But carry
gonna
on,
say,
honey.
I never heard of the principles until I met Rudy here in Hawaii. But I was a psych nurse and I was taught top down. And I was a medical nurse and surgical nurse, and then at the very end I became a psych nurse. But so I have this, my heart breaks. I get very passionate about what I was taught, top down, how much these beautiful people are hurting, and now what we can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's scary. If you go to my Facebook, we just posted a video,
Oh,
a documentary. There's a documentary about this. And so anyway, yes, so I'm very passionate about this because I want people to know they're not broken, that they can heal.
yeah.
And any anxiety well, I'll let you explain, Rudy.
So there's a huge, huge, huge movement towards the bottom-up understanding. And again, don't believe a word I say. If it resonates, great. Look into it. We're not trying to change your beliefs about anything. What we're doing is we're giving you information and you can do with it what you will. We're not saying the power of thought doesn't exist. We're saying, yes, the power of thought is very real. It is a principle, but it works in a slightly different way than what we've been told. It works bottom up. Body is largely creating the thoughts in our mind. Okay. What we found is if you have got chronic anxiety, long-term depression, if you feel so shut down, you find it hard to get out of bed, if you've had something that's happened to you, obviously the same thing can happen to 100 people and you're going to have 100 different responses to that thing. But generally, if you've had a very horrifically traumatic thing happen to you at some stage, you can get these ingrained nervous system states, which Jules is going to talk about in a minute. And if you're only trying to heal, resolve, integrate just using your thinking, you're using about 10% of your capacity to heal and integrate.
And it's after the fact.
Okay, now I know for a top-down understanding, this is really different and it's disruptive and it's the opposite. And I acknowledge that because it took me 2 years to get behind this. So I'm just saying do with it what you will. I'm going to give a metaphor. If you've got compost, rotting fruit and stuff, there's going to be loads of flies flying around it. If those flies, as a metaphor, is what you're thinking, your perception, what you're thinking about yourself, you can wave the flies around, put a fan on it, be aware of a fly, you can count the flies, you can draw the flies, you can do all this stuff to the flies, but the flies are still going to be there until you empty the compost. Then they're not going to be there. You can be aware of your thinking, you can change your thinking, you can look at your thinking, you can analyze your thinking. Those are the flies, but they're still going to keep flying around until you empty the compost, meaning go before your thought to the body, because the body is what is germinating the thoughts. The nervous system states is what is creating the thoughts. The human body is an enormous sensory organ. The brain is a processor. That enormous sensory organ, energetically, physiologically, is sending information for the brain to process, and then out pops a thought or a perception of that sensory organ's information. If we want to help ourselves, we want to help our clients, we have to look deeper than just what's arising in our heads. We have to start going deeper to the physiological states. And in the last webinar, we did a couple of embodied practices where I don't want to do them again because I want to try and do this fairly quickly so you can watch the recording. But everyone in the webinar thinking calmed down when we did a body practice. Stopping those kind of thinking of self-loathing, of self-judgment, and of you're not good enough, there's something wrong with you, why am I depressed, why am I so anxious? All of those thoughts, okay, you have to go before. First of all, you may have no awareness of what's going on in your head. You just feel horrible all the time, or most of the time. Then you gain awareness. Oh, I seem to have an issue around this. Or, wow, I'm really anxious. Why am I so anxious? Or, God, I can't get out of bed. Why do I feel so lethargic? Awareness is a great step, but often it isn't enough. There has to be an integration. Can you explain what integration means, honey?
Yeah, it's a reunification, because you're one divine system with many, many beautiful features. So it's a reunification of many seemingly separate parts into one wholality. It's they say whole, but it's into one wholality, and that's everything. Understanding the intelligence behind and through that we are as this human being. And I mean being as biochemical, electromagnetic, plasma-like being. So we are this beautiful one divine system with many features, and reunifying, understanding that all parts are necessary. They're important. And when we understand that, something begins to shift. And then we go into integrate. And integrate is the reunification of seemingly separate parts.
Guys, how are you doing? Could you put something in the chat? We're going to start going into the practical integration side of it. We want to kind of know where you are as to where we go.
Yeah.
Doing good, wholeheartedly agree, love it. It makes a whole lot more sense to me. Great. Yes, so makes sense, makes sense, makes sense. Thumbs up.
What I recognize, I did something brave last night. I posted the webinar on, not the webinar, but this trauma documentary, and it's going big, but on my Facebook page. And my Facebook page is with my old colleagues, because I was a detox nurse. And these PhDs that own clinics around the United States and stuff. And so I was really nervous because they're very top down. So anyway, so I want to premise it with saying that. But I want to honor, because Oxford University, UK, hosts the largest trauma event in Europe.
In the world.
In the world,
Yeah.
but yes. But it has all of these bottom-up understanding. It has all of these experts that once learned top-down, PhDs, Dr. Stephen Porges, Dr. Peter Levine, Gabor Mate, Bessel van der Kolk, all of them speak at this event. And they questioned, just like you were saying, questioned because they saw something deeper. And now they honor and speak with such eloquence, integrity, kindness, beauty, and healing words. That's just what I wanted to say. And it's starting to be taught at Oxford also. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Yeah, you're welcome. Go ahead.
There's something called cognitive dissonance, and what it means is all of us, including myself and Jules, we're all in the same boat here. If we have a belief, and we generally really like sticking to our belief because it gives us familiarity. In fact, one research found that, I'm trying to get the words right here. All of us, well, I can't say all, general humans, if there is such a thing, will choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven. I remember talking to one person who had a condition, and I literally told him that he didn't need to be having it and he could heal himself, and this is how. He was suffering for this. He just listened to me, then changed the subject because it was different from his belief system. And this is what we do.
It's pattern recognition in the body. It's implicit. It's an implicit memory that arises to honor and always in service of survival. We would not survive as a human species if our body didn't react first. We wouldn't be able to run, or I think last time I explained how we let go of a hot pan and our body sends electrical information from that hot pan into this spinal cord. That's called the somatic arc. It happens and it bypasses thought, it bypasses the brain. We would not survive as a human species. So when individuals change the subject, that's a pattern. You know, that's a pattern in their body that their body has this overwhelming sense of safety and survival when something is consistent. That's why domestic violence clients stay in domestic violence, because it is a familiar hell and their body can recognize a pattern. Body has adapted and it knows exactly what to do, how to live life in that situation. So leaving is something very unfamiliar. The body hasn't adapted to it, but there is an integration period that I work with these individuals to where they get, it's not even courage, it's where they emerge a new adaptation, and that's one of healing. I hope that makes sense.
It does to me.
Okay,
so I want to just do an overview on this. Most top-down teachings are focusing on thought and cognition, the power of thought, what you think, analyzing your thinking, being aware of your thinking. Now that's being superseded holistically in many areas via the bottom-up understanding, because we finally got research to prove it works bottom-up. One doorway looking at thought is using about 10% of our whole nature. The other doorway, looking through the body, is using about 90% of our whole nature. And we've had so many clients come to us terrorizing themselves. And I don't mean that in a judgmental way. We can all do that, and we're not doing it on purpose. Of course we're not. Terrorizing themselves with their own thinking for decades, until predominantly Jules, because Jules is the expert around this. Jules, it's not that you just go, oh, that's just your thinking. You're aware that thought is really uncomfortable, but you take them, you help them integrate into the body. Could you talk a little bit about practically about some of your clients as far as thoughts and then taking them deeper to heal them from decades of.
Everybody is unique, and that's one thing. There isn't anybody like you. So everybody, every person comes to me with their own unique history, their own unique participation in life, relationships, and their own adaptations. And so what's arising may be different. Well, it is different for everybody. So what we do first and foremost is there's something called co-regulation. And that is a biological imperative. That is what the mother does when the baby's born. That baby would not survive on its own without the co-regulation of the mother. And so we've all had enough co-regulation because we're here. And so we begin with that. And that is sitting and communicating and creating a safe space. And when that safe space is created, then the thinking part of our brain comes back online. The higher executive functions the blood flow starts to shift and go to the brain, but only when a body senses safety. So you see that in community work. When people gather together, there's a sense, and they haven't been taught this, but there's a sense of healing in a community environment. We utilize that same thing within the wholality of life. So we honor the biological imperative, the necessity of co-regulation, and that starts to shift blood flow into the digestive system. Around the heart softens. The higher executive functions become to come offline. There's clarity. I feel clearer. I can understand now. The blood flow that was around the neck and the back starts to soften and reroute to health, growth, and restoration. So just that right there is the biggest and most important step in integration.
Like, so you've had a few clients who had decades of the most horrific thinking that kept arising,
Yeah.
and you took them to the ingrained
Yes.
patterns
And
in the
that
body.
time, faith, and patience, because a lot of these beautiful humans have been in a very chaotic environment, even beginning in utero, pre-verbal, before there are even thoughts and words around it, the body begins to protect. And so moving forward in adolescence, and I want to say even epigenetics, because I have somebody here who talked to me about something that happened to them and their daughter experienced it. So I want to honor that also. I mean, it travels through generations, up to 16 generations, and there's science that proves that also. But so when that arises, there's a thought pattern. Everybody has their own unique thought patterns. Everybody has their own flavor arising. So what we do is we recognize that, we honor that. We create a co-regulative space, open the higher executive functions, that thought pattern, the program, the adaptive thought pattern that comes from the lower part of the brain softens, and then we begin to work through it. And I'm probably not explaining it very well.
I know that you've had people with supposedly lifelong patterns, incurable things, a whole lifetime of anxiety, and it didn't get any better
No, it doesn't.
when they were around the top down
No.
until they integrated
Right.
physiologically in the body.
Mm.
And I think for us, we've worked with thousands of people, we've given trainings in 12 countries, blah, blah, blah.
Going to the events helps because there's
Yeah.
that co-regulation there.
Yeah, but fundamentally, if you are so I remember saying something about this in a group, and people were saying, "Oh, it's just vibration, or it's just divine thought." That doesn't help people who feel suicidal and they can't get out of bed. Okay, it doesn't help people who's had a lifetime of being so highly anxious they can't leave the house. Although, yes, everything is vibration, like we want to make something relevant to real people in real life, grounded spirituality. And what we found is that if you exclude the body, if you exclude the nervous system, if you're just telling people it's just your thinking, it's just vibration, that they need to just to get this insight, in our experience, people often remain stuck because it isn't deep enough. It's not relative to a real life person with their very real issues. You have to go, you have to embody, embrace the body and the nervous system.
Yeah, and it takes time. That's
Yeah.
what I think I talk in tree branches. I go off and then that's what I was going to say is that it takes time for these adaptive, protective, implicit memories to ingrain. So it's going to take time
Yeah.
to disingrain, to integrate and to really to transform. And I want to say something about symptoms. So within Wholality, we look at these beautiful beings as biochemical, electromagnetic, plasma-like beings, all one divine system with many unique features. Somebody was talking about autism and ADHD. When somebody has a pattern in their like a predictive pattern of trauma that is being held in the body only for protection, only in service of survival, because it'd be too much for somebody to handle. The eyes kind of look down. The executive functions of the brain go offline. The tympanic membrane of the ear changes shape. It searches for predators, low vibrational growl, or prey, high screams, tunes out human voice. So then we look at that. We have somebody who isn't focusing. There's a lot of brain fog. There's auditory hypersensitivity. You can't sit still. You have ADHD right there. I mean, I used to go and collect all of this information and bring it to the doctor and, assess and reassess and reassess. And then they try some sort of medication. And then we'd see how that works. And my heart is broken from that, from doing that. So my child came back. We won my child back. It's a long story. And he came back from spending time in his bio dad's house and came back with a slew of medication. It was a very chaotic environment. It was traumatic, but he had every single ADHD symptom, and he was put on the spectrum for autism. However, now, I found a doctor, I don't care who they were, to help me because I needed somebody to help me wean him off. He's off of every single medication with co-regulation like probably 20 times a day. His auditory hypersensitivity is gone. He can focus. He makes eye contact.
Yeah.
He stands up straight. He's quite social now.
He is.
So Gabor Mate said something the other day. He said, somebody questions you said everybody with an trauma creates autoimmune disease. And he said, no, that's not what I said. Everybody with an autoimmune disease or ADD has a history of trauma. The body's going to adapt in always, and I want to say this, always in service of survival, and then express in protective ways. You can call this is love in protection.
Yeah.
This is non-dualistic sublime love in protection, always in service of our survival.
Can I give an example?
Oh yeah, go ahead. I'm done. Go
You're
ahead.
done. Okay, thanks, honey. So I grew up in a very toxic environment, lots of alcoholism, mental health issues, violence, etc. And my response, or my way of dealing, my adaptation was that well, first of all, I got highly intuitive as far as my senses, because if I wasn't tuned into the environment, I could get slapped or something. So there was this increase in my capacity to energetically interpret the field. And second, I would try and please everybody, because if I kept them happy, then there wouldn't be any violence. If I could only be nice enough, maybe my mum would stop drinking alcohol. If I was really good to my dad, maybe he would be less violent. So my adaptation for survival turned me into a people pleaser as an adult. Okay. Now, it's not my ego being a people pleaser. It's like this is my body trying to keep me alive. You know, we do this. Get rid of the freaking word ego because it's so judgmental to us. We do what we need to do to survive depending on our situation. Okay. It creates patterns. My pattern was I'm a people pleaser. I'll do everything for everyone else and not for me. Okay. I'll put everybody first. And you could call it selfless, but at the same time, I got bankrupt and burn out through doing that.
Yeah.
I had to learn boundaries. I had to learn to say no. I had to kill the nice guy and become the authentic guy. Okay. So this is what we mean. The nervous system will create these physiological patterns within us completely unconsciously. I had no awareness of them. I only became aware of them when I met Jules. And then working with Jules and the Wholality, what we teach now, there's an integration. So I no longer do that stuff.
But I cheated though.
All of you guys have got your own adaptive responses from your past circumstances. You're not doing anything wrong. It's got nothing to do with ego. Okay.
Right.
It's not just your thinking. It's what you did to survive.
Yeah.
It's what you did to be in this world. Now, awareness of that stuff only takes you so far. There has to be an integration in those patterns. And I personally worked with Jules to integrate those patterns so I didn't do them anymore. One thing I want to say, I had the most horrific back pain most of my life. I no longer have back pain. I could get highly reactive. I can have mood swings and get really self-loathy about myself, even after having oneness experiences. Okay, even after very deep spiritual insights, it was still ingrained in my physiology. I didn't go deep enough. Anyway, carry on, honey.
So, I got to the point where I got so sick that I had hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, oodles and noodles of digestive issues and pain around my body, ADD, ADHD, all of these issues that I had a sudden cardiac arrest when they took my son. Because I downsized to the point where I had to live in a tent. But what I want to say afterwards, this is what I mean I cheated. So afterwards, after the experience, and I can share a blip of my book if you want to read about it. But after waking up on the forest floor, I could see energy around everything. And the energy isn't as clean, it does go up, but it doesn't have nice little lines. It's kind of messy, but it goes up and it spirals around everything. And so I could see that around every human. It was really overwhelming for me to be around people because I got really super excited about life and about what I saw. But when I saw Rudy, I could see this was only just when I met you, I could see the energy. This lasted for 4 years. So I could see the energy, but it congregated a little bit more here. And if we look at this, this is what the ancient cultures have been talking about for the millennia. What chakra is right here? What energy center is right here? What does it do? It protects. The gut is our action center. It protects. So Rudy was in a stance of protection, not a whole lot rising up, but it goes up and it spirals. And so when I first started to talk about this, I created something called Sophia's Fibonacci. and the Fibonacci is a spiral.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to say. I cheated that way.
So
Then I had to find the science.
yeah, so you saw the energy move bottom up,
Yes.
and then you found the science to
Yeah.
prove that.
And I did tell Stephen and Deb Dana, and they don't think I'm crazy.
So, we're going to share a little bit about, okay, so how do you move from awareness of your stuff? We all have stuff. It's very normal. You're not doing anything wrong. This is part of being human, into integrating our stuff, because this only takes you so far. So we're going to talk about that next. Okay, we hope it's going to be helpful. Before we do that, I'm going to be quiet for 1 minute. If you guys have got any specific questions from what we've covered so far, please put it in the chat. We want to. Okay. Couple of questions. I'm going to read them out. Then we're going to go to the integration part. How do you scan your body messages instead of your brain thought messages to calm yourself? We're so used to observing and rearranging our thoughts. It can take a while to bring our awareness down into the physiology in the body. It just takes a bit of time. So there's various things like meditation, there's breath work, there's somatic exercises that we could do that we don't have time for now. But we're going to talk about support to help you do this in the next bit. But fundamentally,
Well, because everybody's unique.
yeah,
And it kind of depends where they are. And I meet them where they are and then create a map. And we map their nervous system. We map their entire being, not, everything. The biochemical electromagnetic plasma, everything. We map that. And then from there, we move forward. And it's tough, very tough for some people. Some people see me 2 times a week. Some people see me once a week. But the thing is, the most beautiful thing is when they message and they say, okay, I don't need you anymore.
I know, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Voice is deep. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. I'm normally got a high voice. I turn into Batman.
But then they send people to me. And so it takes time, faith, and patience. But once you understand the map of your own whole being, the wholality of your entire being, then you can become the driver and the navigator, as Deb Dana says, of your system.
To be really transparent, guys, if you've had these very normal survival states that kind of transcend into these different patterns, if they've developed over years and years, decades, even a lifetime, having an insight is really good and it shifts your vibration, but quite often it can kind of wear off and you're always slightly further ahead, but you can fall back into, like, I remember being on a 2-week solitary meditation retreat. I literally felt like I was part of the universe. And then my girlfriend at the time picked me up and we ended up arguing within 5 minutes of being in the car because my just habitual patterns came up again. So to integrate these habitual patterns, which we all have because we're human, it just takes a bit of going within. It takes a bit of time.
It goes from feeling into actually a language. We develop your own language. It's a biological language that does not have a cognitive description. And everybody comes up with their own language, their sensations and impulses in the body. It's a sense. So it isn't anything cognitive like you need to feel your feelings. It's deeper than that because it's biological, it's chemistry, and there isn't the cognitive language around that doesn't compute. We drop in, and that's the key right there.
So for example, I had this habitual habit of reacting to certain stimulus in the world, because obviously we're all going to have a different unique response to the same stimulus, obviously. But for me personally, there's certain flavors in the world that I could get really upset about. Hands up if you've experienced that yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, certain things can sort of. Now, first of all, I had no awareness of that. I was just reacting because it was what was happening. Then I was like, oh yeah, honey, I do tend to react like that sometimes. Sorry. And then what happened is the flavor in the world would come and I'll catch myself. I'm about to react in this habitual way, and I go, "Oh, I'm about to do that."
Right.
But then it took me a while with that awareness not to react. There was this, okay, I initially was like, okay, I'm feeling that heat rise, and I just started closing my eyes and breathing.
Well, you used to beat yourself up.
Yeah, and then I'll
Because
have most horrific self-judgment about myself. So, but this is a process that takes a bit of time. You can't just have an insight then that immediately clears. It's a process.
I want to say one thing because you said there's always a stimulus. Okay, we are relational beings. Life is participatory. It's something called neuroception. Neuroception is our divine sacred scanning of the body, but there's a more technical name that Stephen gave it. It's the body's, I say sacred listening, but it's the body's sending and receiving messages below conscious awareness. This is what we need to honor because we are human beings and we participate. That is how we survive. There is neuroception arising when we cuddle our newborn baby, and that is how that baby survives. That's how it develops. I heard Rudy say, that can't make you, whatever you say, feel the way you do.
Yeah.
And I say, well, actually, I mean, they saw the energy participate. And so when I brought this to HeartMath, and he said, well, of course it participates. The field, we've got the field. There is intelligent information that our body is this divine instrument and it filters everything. Right now, my neuroception is communicating with Rudy's neuroception. There's a language below conscious awareness. And that's how you walk into a room. When I was little and I knew, okay, it's not a good time to ask my dad for money, and then I would turn around and walk out.
Yeah.
Our body knows. And so that is something that we need to honor because I've seen a lot where it's not the environment, it's just thought.
Yeah, that's a whole other webinar.
Yeah.
I don't think we should go too much
No.
into that.
But I just, and it really can really hurt people and create a self-judgment about how they're responding to life.
Yeah, everything's relational. In fact, the most rigorously established study in the history of social sciences is the Maharaji effect. Have you guys heard of that?
Yeah.
The Maharaji effect. It's where a small number of people in a community, right, they consciously focus on heart coherence and love. Okay. Now that vibration exteriorizes out and affects the entire community. The study I'm mentioning in 1988, a group of people did this in Jerusalem. While they were doing this, war-related fatalities reduced by 76%, injuries by 68%, and conflict dropped by 48%. In fact, cooperation between antagonists increased by 66%. There is a measurable effect in the field. We're not separate beings walking around in our flesh bodies where this entangled energy, and there is research article after research article after research article proving this. Anyway, so yes, the environment, the energetics, everything, there's a relation between it and us. It's not just your thinking about, it's not just your perception and your thinking, how you're handling it. We're human. It's normal. We will have an effect. We will have a reaction to certain things. You're not doing anything wrong.
No,
this is normal.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get back to the questions. Are you saying that integration will give relief to ADHD and autistic people?
Relief. Yes. So there's actually, I'm a safe and sound protocol practitioner, and what we use is sound to relax the tympanic membranes. It really helps. It really helps the auditory hypersensitivity. And this is a cue of safety. when somebody is talking, again, this is co-regulation. When somebody is talking, you're sensing their energy. Your tympanic membranes are picking up a frequency of kindness, of softness, of healing. It begins to soften. That is why these communities, like blue zones here in Hawaii, that's why these communities are so healing. I wanted to say, I want to say one quick thing. So when Seth came back, he was on the spectrum for autism, and it was a big ordeal to send him to school when there was an assembly. Because when I was in high school, assemblies were so much fun. They were loud and the band plays, but he was really scared.
Yeah,
And so
that
he,
boy.
yeah. And so he was really scared of offending these beautiful Hawaiian people. Because I don't want to wear headphones. I don't want to be offensive. And so we got a teacher stand, back with him. But by the end of his third year, he was cheering with everybody and out there, like, yeah, like clapping, because his body had integrated, shifted. There's still ADHD tendencies, but some of the higher, more ingrained autistic tendencies fell away.
Yeah, so basically integration will soften and very, very much help with ADHD. And that's not just theoretically, that's you've worked with a number of people,
Yeah.
and our own son is a testament to that. And also I had auditory hypersensitivity so badly that if a Harley Davidson that went past, this is an adult, I feel so terrorized in my body that I would often want to cry. I remember being with a group of friends, and Harley Davidson went by, and I just kind of like pretend I had something in my eye because I was so embarrassed. But felt so discordant in my body. I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
Now Harley can go by and it's just like a deep rumble because my body isn't in that state of fight or flight anymore. That I didn't resolve until I integrated it, which we're going to talk about after the questions and answers.
We want to create a healing community. We want to create this beautiful community that honors all that you are. Again, biochemical, electromagnetic, plasma-like beings. We are bioresonant beings, meaning we're bioelectrical, but also we resonate, we echo with one another. And that is so important in honoring all of the sensations and impulses before the feeling state that arise. And I know that once I work with people on their own unique map, they don't need me anymore and they can go off and help other people.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm going to put this in the chat. So after working with lots of people, mostly top-down people, we wanted to build a resource that can help people, because one insight or one session or going on a course or reading a book is often not enough if you've got decades and decades of ingrained habitual responses. Okay, I'll put that in the chat here. So we've just created a membership resource that will give you like one-to-ones, weekly practice of breath work, co-regulation, nervous system regulation. You can train as a Wholality facilitator, which is looking at the whole nature of and the totality of experience. But as far as going from awareness, well, I know it's my thinking, but to integration, that's a bit of a process that can take a time. And believe me, guys, I've studied clinical hypnotherapy. I did NLP. I did lots of these seemingly quick fixes. All you need is this understanding. You just need to do this or change your belief system. And it only takes you so far because, again, you're using about 10% of your total capacity there. With the whole nature of us, you're using 100%. And so those deeply ingrained patterns can be integrated, but you need to do more than a free webinar or read a book or go on a conference. There has to be kind of more of a commitment to yourself. And I know this isn't sexy or shiny because a lot of spirituality says, well, you just get this understanding, then everything changes, or you can do an hour session and lifelong trauma is gone. If you hear that, run the other way.
Or says, if you see that, run the other way. Yeah.
If you've had decades of this stuff, it can take a while to unravel and integrate that.
Yeah.
And the do nothing, you don't need to do anything. All you need is an insight. After having taught that for 20 years, it does take you so far, but we still get so many clients suffering from the most chronic things that are still very present. I'm one of them. I've had so many insights, but it didn't do much for my nervous system.
Yeah, your back pain is gone.
But not everyone's going to have traumatic childhoods. You could grow up with a fairly even keel and it may not relate to you. You could have an insight and it's going to be really helpful. But often people with really difficult pasts or difficult circumstances, and insights aren't going to be enough to move them on. It's going to help, but the integration is going to be where it's at. I hope that kind of makes sense. So that's a resource. The lower membership, like it's $28 or something for the year. There's embodied practices, there's breath work. There's sound healing library. There's all this stuff. And just for almost no money to help you.
It's on an app, so you can take it with you. You can download it and take it with you and then create your own bespoke favorites. So you can have something.
You can listen to it as you go to sleep. You can kind of do the breath work, the nervous system regulation with your eyes closed on a train with no internet. Like, it's really helpful. Love your holistic perspective.
With a W. You should put a W on there.
I know. It makes so much sense. Much more sense to me. Sounds great. It doesn't grate against my belief system because the 3 Ps added to my trauma rather than alleviating it. What you are saying makes far more sense. Oh, beautiful. On the membership, we're going to be doing more of these nervous system regulations, meditation. Steve here is a Qigong teacher. We're going to be yoga classes, Qigong classes. Oh, we've got someone else here who's lost their child. There's going to be stuff around grief and moving not past loss, but through with it. Yeah, it's honoring all of it. And you're all welcome to join or not, it's okay, but we wanted to create a resource that is embodied and integrates rather than just offering information. Any last words? Okay,
that's everything.
Okay, guys, lots of love and see you in the next webinar, hopefully.
See you Monday.
Bye for now.
Bye.
See you guys.